From news and views, issues and opportunities, we'll have in-depth conversations with decision makers to find out what they know and what they think. I'm Rico Hizon, inviting you to join the exchange because your business is our business. As if soaring consumer prices are not enough, Filipinos will spend more on goods and services purchased through the internet if Congress passes the proposed digital economy tax. Single-use plastics, common in wet markets and sari-sari stores are not spared as well as the government seeks to raise revenues. What are other ways to raise funds without taxing consumers? And while taxing single-use plastics may impact micro and small businesses, economic managers say it is the best argument for the country's contribution to climate action. The vision of an efficient waste management system in our sweet vision. The economic team is pushing for new taxes on digital services and single-use plastics to generate more revenues to fund economic and social programs and pay down the country's massive debt. Let's now have an exchange with RCBC Chief Economist, Michael Ricafort. Mike, nice to have you with us on the exchange. In your view, is there a need to impose taxes on online purchases and streaming subscriptions?
Yeah, I think it's first, it's really about time due to the principles of fairness as pointed out by the economic team. And it was, of course, timing-wise, because of the huge debt incurred during the pandemic. That's a total of 5 trillion in just, 2.5 years' time. The debt of the country already more than doubled from 6 trillion in 2016. Now it's 12.5 trillion. So, it needs to get all the possible sources of revenues, whether from existing taxes, as it may have been the priority, existing tax laws, and it would be inevitable to really come up with, and deliver new taxes.
What about single-use plastics, Mike? Is there also a need to impose taxes on this?
Well, it's really also on, in terms of encouraging more sustainable practices, or for that matter. This could be one alternative to raise new revenues, enable to somewhat discourage pollution or congestion, especially on the waterways due to this one-time plastic. So those are the. So there's a long list of alternatives actually.
But of course, Mike. But of course, Mike, before imposing new taxes on online transactions, on single-use plastic, shouldn't priority be given by the government on improving tax administration through a well-funded digital transformation and, of course, addressing tax leakages from tax evasion and smuggling?
True, Rico. Actually, that's the priority as already highlighted by the economic team. That's the first line of defense, so to speak, in terms of shoring up the government's recurring sources of revenue. So if they can do it through the existing taxes, to intensify tax collections, well and good. Actually, the previous economic teams, at least cutting across the previous 3 administrations, they were able to do it. But this time around, the problem is much more challenging because of the huge debt during the pandemic. Because for the past 10 to 20 years, the biggest yearly increase in debt of the country was only ranging from 300 to 500 billion. But now during the pandemic, it's 2 trillion. So just for a year, and that's 2 trillion in 2020, 2 trillion in 2021, but 1 trillion for the first.
Yeah, because Mike, a lot of sectors are also complaining that it's also wrong timing, given that our kababayans are grappling with rising consumer prices. And once it has stabilized, maybe then it's time, but not now.
Yeah, true, Rico. Actually, that's one of the risks of coming up with new taxes or higher tax rates. That would lead to higher inflation. There's already a precedence to this. Just in early part of 2018, when the train law was passed, we already saw some pickup in inflation right away at the start of the year. Of course, among many other factors, just like what we're experiencing right now. And there's a war, the Russia-Ukraine war right now, since for almost 5 months already, unlike in 2018. So that's another challenge, actually. Yeah, true. And what's really important in this case would be a more targeted, in terms of increasing tax collection, especially on those who can afford higher taxes, meaning the higher income brackets, and those who are, and of course, preventing undue burden already for those who were, for those who are already impoverished, and also the poorest sectors of society, as well as those sectors who were already hit hard by the pandemic, as the country is still reeling from the adverse effects. And not to mention the higher prices right now, and most of which due to external factors, largely brought about by higher fuel prices and other global commodities. So, yeah, it should be, the calculation should be conceived right now to make sure, and the principles of equity, the principles of fairness, make sure that it's really progressive, that it's really taxing those who can afford it more, meaning the higher income tax brackets, and those who were less affected by the pandemic, and avoiding the most vulnerable sectors. So that would add to poverty, given now the limited and the stretched budgets due to inflation. And of course, a lot of sectors are still recovering from the pandemic, as the economy just reopened just recently.
Correct.
We just saw the resumption of many sectors, like we just transitioned since March, the lowest alert level, and the resumption of foreign tourism, continued recovery of local tourism business with the easing of restrictions. So it's still, the recovery is still fragile at this point. For a lot of sectors in the economy.
So, a lot of challenges ahead, and this may not be the time to impose new taxes. Thank you so much for this tax exchange, RCBC Chief Economist Michael Ricafort. And to all our exchange viewers, we invite you to join our discussion tonight. Here's our question. Are you in favor of imposing taxes on digital transactions, including streaming subscriptions like Netflix and Spotify, and on single-use plastics to increase government revenues, and why? Well, send your answers to our social media accounts, and I will read them later in the program. And now here's a rundown of this week's top business stories. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas hikes borrowing rates by 0.75 of a point to 3.25% in a bid to address rising prices. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry says allowing the resumption of in-person classes would allow the economy to grow by as much as 8% in the second half of the year. And U.S. inflation hit a 40-year high in June at 9.1% year-on-year, driven by surging gas prices. And coming up on the exchange, where your business is our business, we take a look at the proposals to tax digital services and single-use plastics through the eyes of ordinary Filipinos. Citizen Watch Philippines joins us straight ahead. And we also get perspective from the Philippine Plastics Industry Association. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can use, news you can trust. Glad you're staying with us right here on The Exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. More than half of Filipinos want the new Marcos administration to prioritize rising inflation. A survey conducted by Pulse Asia last month shows 57% of Filipinos are worried about the increasing prices of basic goods and services. Other urgent concerns include wages, poverty, and job creation. Only 7% of our kababayan see the need for the new government to stop the spread of COVID-19 despite rising cases. The survey was conducted among 1,200 respondents who are allowed to choose up to 3 concerns. Digital products and single-use plastics may be seen as potential sources of additional taxes, but how will the move affect the ordinary Filipino? Let's now have an exchange with Citizen Watch Philippines lead convener, Orly Oxales. Orly, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Is there a need to impose taxes on online purchases and streaming subscriptions?
At this time, as consumer, I don't think so. We're just getting used to the digital economy. We've seen it in the past couple of years. Virtually overnight, the population, the whole ecosystem of the Philippines actually shifted to a digital modes of transacting every day. It's actually a lifesaver. I think everybody admits that.
But when do you think, Orly, is the right time to impose taxes on digital platform sales? When do you think can the government make revenues out of these subscriptions and transactions?
I would say at a point when we're at our economic situation is much better. Right now, look, we're almost in a perfect storm. High inflation, high fuel prices. I mean, and ask any consumer, if they hear about new taxes, what? That's an additional burden. So it won't really hit well on any consumer for that matter, especially the more challenged sectors of our society. Just imagine, if a certain person makes about 1,000 pesos of online purchases, and it's going to be given a 12% VAT, that's 120 pesos.
What about administering taxes on single-use plastics, Orly? Is there a need for it? Because we're a sachet economy, and a lot of our kababayans use sachets because they cannot buy the bigger products.
Exactly. We're probably the only economy, or out of a few, that has sachet economy. You won't see that in other countries. But the issue is economic. And if the purpose is environmental, I don't see how taxation is going to do it. Taxation will not solve the problem of plastics. People will still need plastics because that's all they can afford. It's an economics thing. And I have a saying that garbage does not walk to the rivers or the seas. It's a behavioral thing.
Yeah,
when
because
disposal, that's where the leaks are.
Right.
Consumers are just not disposing of their plastics properly.
And the new administration must then educate our kababayans on how to use these single plastics and how to dispose them, rather than taxing our people.
Yes, it's a social. I think it's a social marketing thing that that the government needs to look at. It's going to be worth investing in an education, and not just in education. It's a collection infrastructure. If you will go to, the government knows where the leaks are. It's in these sectors or areas where people are economically challenged. If you go there, you will see that where will people actually throw their garbage? How are they collected? And really,
But
50%
Orly,
it's about behavior.
But changing behavior, changing marketing, educating will take time. We need the money now. We need the additional revenues now, Orly. What should we do to narrow our debt gap, our budget deficits, our current account deficit? What else can the government do to increase revenues without burdening consumers?
Yeah, actually, our longest advocacy is to plug the leaks for government. You know, if we avoid, or if we are able to stop at least 5 or 10 corruption transactions, that's probably worth more than a million taxes of 1 million consumers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, digitize the government, digitize the bureaucracy, digitize the BIR. This has been long time. Digital transformation of the whole government. will
So
actually
what is wrong
solve
with the government?
a
Why
lot
has
of
it
these
taken them
leaks.
so much time to digitize and improve the leaks in the system?
Yeah, well, it really needs a very strong champion within government. Information technology, digitalization, for most policymakers are not well understood, and they need the help of the private sector to guide them towards this. Because it's the private sector, they need to innovate, they need to be efficient. So they invest in technologies. They know how to,
Yeah.
the value of technologies.
So-
So I think guidance from all sectors is needed. This harmonized, just for one thing, our
So-
digital infrastructure.
Okay, so apart from
Government needs to
improving
yeah.
taxation, not taxing the consumers on digital transactions, streaming transactions, and single-use plastics, what are the other main concerns, Orly, of consumers that need immediate attention?
Well, it's really inflation, the cost of food. I think it's a known risk now that we're approaching a food crisis, and I think that's very scary in terms of national security. If we are going to have a food problem, and consumers are going to be burdened or can't afford to buy food, the repercussions are quite scary, security-wise.
And we're seeing that right now, no? The fuel crisis, the food crisis impacting Sri Lanka. And we don't want to be in that kind of situation, Orly.
Yes, definitely. And these are very gut issues that hasn't really changed for the past administrations. And I believe this administration has the opportunity to prove itself. That I believe that the government's appointments of the economic leaders are very good, and what we need now is for all sectors to harmonize each other, get the best talents, and really get the best ideas out there.
Right.
Because I would avoid further burdening the consumers, because they're already suffering. I mean, for example, new taxes. I mean, we reduced the taxes of corporations. Now we're going to give more taxes to consumers. There's something wrong with that.
All right, thank you so much for this consumer exchange. Citizen Watch Philippines lead convener, Orly Oxales. On to our social media accounts, and we asked you, our viewers, right here on The Exchange, are you in favor of imposing taxes on digital transactions, including streaming subscriptions like Netflix and Spotify, and on single-use plastics to increase government revenues? And why? Here are your responses. John Daniel thinks it's fair because products and services from physical stores are subject to taxes. For M. Noabelio, the Bureau of Internal Revenue should first solve deficiencies in tax collection and run after those who owe money to the government. Makoy Balatbat is also against the new taxes, citing the government's lack of transparency. He explains there's no guarantee that these taxes will be put to good use amid rampant corruption. Thank you so much for joining and for your insights. Keep those discussions on CNN Philippines' official social media pages. And when we return on The Exchange, where your business is our business, we'll discuss the impact of taxes on single-use plastics on our so-called sachet economy with the Philippine Plastics Industry Association. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can trust. Welcome back right here on The Exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Here's a rundown now of this week's biggest corporate news. Global liquor maker Emperador entered the main board of the Singapore Exchange on Thursday. It will maintain its primary listing on the Philippine Stock Exchange. Ayala Corporation and Globe Telecom announced their platforms Consulta MD, Health Now, and Aid will be consolidated into a single super app and become a one-stop shop for health services. They are targeting the new Consulta MD super app to go live in the first quarter of 2023. And Mega World Lifestyle Malls opened 3 charging stations for electric vehicles at their Uptown Mall in Bonifacio Global City in Taguig. The government welcomed the company's initiative to help improve transport efficiency and promote e-mobility. The World Bank estimates that the country uses about 163 million sachets per day. And with this, can Filipinos benefit from the proposed taxes on single-use plastics? A social weather station survey reveals 7 in 10 Filipinos support an overall ban on them. Let's now have an exchange with Philippine Plastics Industry Association President Aaron Lau. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. The sachet economy in the country is massive. What is the stand of the association on this planned imposition of a single-use plastics tax?
The taxes will directly affect the consumer. So at this point, if after we of the pandemic, especially the sachet, its purpose is to give the lower income families the opportunity to buy their everyday necessities, from shampoo to instant noodles. And if you're going to tax those packaging, then the prices of these commodities will also go up. So it is indirectly taxing the lower income families, the middle income families.
What kind of impact, though, will this have on the plastic businesses like yourself and your co-businesses in the industry, Aaron?
It will definitely have a big impact because companies will prefer to import the finished products, which are specifically packaged in plastic. We will not have a lot of companies will shut down. They will just import the finished goods. So it will be a lot of lost jobs and a lot of lost opportunities for the Filipino.
Because at the moment, you have this House Bill 9171, or the excise tax on plastic bags, which targets a 20 peso per kilo tax on single-use plastic bags. And the Senate is still crafting its own version. And this bill could be signed into law in this 19th Congress by the President. What is your recommendation to the lawmakers and the administration, so there's a win-win situation for the government in terms of revenues and for the local plastic businesses and for the consumers?
Well, first of all, it's not very clear whether Secretary Jokno is mentioning about this 20 peso per kilo House Bill 9171, or it's another kind of tax on the single-use plastic. But we are sure Secretary Jokno, if he looks into this problem, he will realize that the problem is not the single-use plastic, but it's the waste disposal facility. The Philippines does not have the proper waste disposal facility. All we have is just a landfill. So every time you landfill it, there's a lot of problem arising from that. If we can have a waste disposal facility like that of Singapore or Japan, malinis na ang Pilipinas. It will be very beneficial for all of us.
But Aaron, it's never too late then to be able to install these waste disposal facilities. Do you think that there's political will in this administration to do that rather than tax the single-use plastics companies?
Yes, I think so. A lot of the secretaries the President BBM appointed are very good ministers. They are very capable. So I think it's coming. Yeah, because when you have a waste disposal facility, that can also be another source of tax income for the government. And at the same time, it can also create a lot of jobs. When you ban the SUP, you lose a lot of jobs. So I think that will be a win-win situation.
And what have been the efforts of companies in your association, large and small, to reduce basically plastic waste or come up with sustainable packaging, Aaron?
Well, for the food packaging, we have transitioned from the previous plastic bags to microwavables already. So these microwavables are very reusable. You can reuse it a lot of times, and at the end of the life, it can also be recyclable. So that's one of the transition right now.
And has the transition been in a large jump, or is it only in small increments?
It's more of small increments, and everyone is jumping into to protect the environment. The industry also provides a lot of drop-off points for your plastic waste. Then we also have the co-processing. We have coordinated with the other companies can do plastic lumber or plastic chairs coming from the waste. So these are most of the developments lately.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for the Single-Use Plastics Exchange. Philippine Plastics Industry Association President Aaron Lau. And before we go, a popular tourist spot in the Philippines continues to make waves in the global scene. Boracay Island was hailed as one of the greatest places to visit in 2022. Time magazine called the island famous for its white sands, a paradise reborn. Other places that made it to the top 50 include Seoul in South Korea, Bali in Indonesia, and Kyushu Island in Japan. And this is the exchange. We make sense of the facts and the figures and the ups and downs of the business cycle, because your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Thanks for watching CNN Philippines. News you can use. News you can trust.